Hey everybody, welcome to Goshen Prepping and welcome to snowy Michigan in my car. We had some errands to run today, out in town all day, dental appointments and such, and I thought that'd be a perfect time to sit in the car with you and chat about something that I think is going to be vitally important for us to understand for what's coming. And what's coming is, at the very least, World War III. And I'm not saying this specifically because, I'm just trying to be a fear monger and such. It's everywhere. It's all in the news. It's all the chatter. And what I find when it comes to mainstream media is they will always tell you what's coming through the news, and then it happens. It's kind of like a self-fulfilled prophecy type thing. They want you to follow the narrative they want to push. And speaking of narratives, it's very important as preppers, we talked about before, that we have to be careful telling people we're preppers. We have to be careful telling people that we prep or have stockpiles of food and water and other stuff at our house as well. And we've always looked at it as far as the aspect that be careful telling people, because you know what? When crap hits the fan, they're the ones that's going to be knocking at your door. Friends, family, it doesn't matter. And of course, we always have to be prepared. Are you going to turn them away? That's beside the point. That's actually not the point today I want to make when I talk about as far as letting people know you're preppers. Because letting people know you're a prepper, coinciding with World War III, together, that's a very deadly combination. All right, let's go back to World War II. The Nazis are taking hold. And understand that it wasn't necessarily, even though obviously it took place too, a brainwashing from the Nazi government saying, everybody, you need to follow Hitler. Hail Hitler, hail him, hail him as being the king per se. It wasn't, they didn't have to force people. Some people they did. Probably today that would be like the preppers, they had to. But understand that Germany was an extremely proud country, extremely proud people. And they had roots that tied back long before the United States was even formed, as far as like our continental United States. Obviously, the indigenous people or Native Americans were here long before that. And when we look at the Treaty of Versailles, which basically imposed monetary dues because of World War I on Germany, it was well beyond anything they could ever pay. And when you get into that situation, basically subduing them as a country because of what happened in World War I, desperate times call for desperate measures, and that's exactly what happened in Nazi Germany. The desperation of the people and the starvation, and these proud people saying, we're Germans, you can't do that to us. And then along comes this guy named Hitler who says, no, it's time to bring us back to the amazing glory we used to be. Are you starting to see a connection here? And as Nazi Germany grew, they secretly at first started doing military operations. They literally had Navy officers in rowboats on lakes practicing strategies and techniques before they were allowed to even have battleships. And it was all planned long way ahead of time. So when we see all this culminating into World War II, you didn't have to convince the people to follow Hitler. Almost the entire population fell for this hook, line, and sinker because they were proud Germans and they wanted to restore their proud Germany back to the glory it used to be. All right, so with this, anytime they found somebody who went against this narrative, went against the Nazi regime, they turned them in and off to the concentration camps they went. And there's a whole host of people, obviously, that's, again, not part of this video. So what does it have to do with here in the United States? I mean, think about this. United States was a glory country. I mean, we literally have been the reserve currency for the world for the past 70-80 years. We were one of the main components, if not the prime component, that made it so we won World War II. Our entire economy just simply boomed as we became the world leader. And the innovations, the technology, America's always been looked at as the forefront of innovation, and the things we have done are simply incredible. And I'm talking about like technology and such. Now, unfortunately, some of the things we've done too are extremely questionable. And I don't necessarily mean Operation Paperclip, where it is well documented that many of those Nazis came to the United States and worked for our government. There's so many stories about that we could literally devote, and I'm not kidding you, an entire channel just on Operation Paperclip. But what I am talking about is this. We've had it in so many cases where the United States, the governments, the elites, the people who were heads up wanted to bring our country into a war. And so they literally fabricated things that would take place to usher it in. For example, The bombing of the USS Maine in the late 1800s brought us into the Spanish-American War. The Gulf of Tonkin. I mean, a lot of these stories you already know. Not to mention, let's talk about Operation Enduring Freedom and what brought us into that. I have to be careful saying these things because understand the elitists that run these whole things also, you through AI monitor these channels and kind of look at, who's the rebel rouser going against the system? Because remember, the Nazis, they had all these people who went against the system too, and they took them to concentration camps, and who turned them in? Fellow citizens. What's happening now? Why do you think we have this censorship that we have now? It's everywhere. So much censorship going against anybody who questions the narrative. And this is not speculation. This is not hyperbole. Are you familiar with Operation Northwoods? Prior to the JFK assassination, through declassification of the JFK files, not all of them, by the way, there's countless files that they will still not release after all this time. One of them talked about Operation Northwoods, and where literally the Department of Defense and our government said, maybe we need to do some kind of action in which, for example, we claim the Cubans hijack a plane and kill everybody. And that way it's an excuse to bring America into a war to retake Cuba, that small sliver of an island that is south of Florida, only 90 miles off the coast. This is not a major war, but nevertheless, they were planning and practicing a false flag. In fact, there's so many who even claim that when JFK was assassinated, that was the false flag, hopefully to reunify it. Because when we talk about Lee Harvey Oswald, everybody claimed was simply just a Soviet spy in America, etc., and basically tried to convert over. That was all an operation. You need to research about that. He really was, if you understand what happened there, he really was a patsy. And that's, I'll be honest with you, being out here in my car, this kind of stuff I even don't like talking about because they still keep tabs on these things. That's what YouTube's all about, by the way. Let's make it so the huge company that lets people put out videos of happy cats playing the piano, but if you talk against their narrative, then suddenly I'm one of those people in Nazi Germany who goes against the Nazi regime. So who falls in this category? You do. And I do. Because we're going against the narrative, because we're preppers. Because think about it. The Nazis back in World War II, hey guys, we got it all under control. I don't know if you know it, but the Nazis were socialist. That's what Nazi means, National Socialist. And they hated communism. They wanted to make it so the socialism was all under their own control. And with this, the government made sure everybody had the food they needed. Well, practically speaking, the war took away a lot of the food. You had your bread, you had your pork. They had all these things set up to try to feed the population. Oh, in exchange, we want your allegiance, literally your allegiance, and fight for glorious Germany. It's interesting how Germany had this huge rise in power, and it was looked at as being just this incredible, majestic thing, all kinds of innovation. I mean, even still today, a lot of people talk about Germany as far as how technologically amazing things they've done in the past. And then it came down, leading that into the Nazis taking over in World War II. We see the exact same parallel with the United States. We had this huge rise in the United States, came up, we were the technological innovation. Still, people look at America as being the most amazing thing. I love America. I love the United States. This is my country. And I believe we can restore it. But they restored it by sending Nazi Germany into a regime to take over the whole world. Is that what's going to happen in the United States? And this is certainly not one of those videos where I'm saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying it very well could happen. So basically, here's what it all sums up to be. Everything, chatter, news agencies, MSM, everybody's talking about World War III and how we, the United States and NATO, is heading into World War III. What's going to send us there? It took the bombing of the USS Maine to put us in the Spanish-American War. It took the Gulf of Tonkin for Vietnam, and it took Pearl Harbor to get us into World War II. And continuously, we have these huge, catastrophic things that happen, and anybody who goes against that narrative is looked at as an enemy of the state. You and I are preppers. So yes, you need to keep the fact that you're a prepper quiet so Aunt Betty and Uncle Joe don't come knock on your door and want your corned beef hash. That's true. But you're going to be looked at as an enemy of the state as well, because we know better that when some kind of major, catastrophic, black swan event takes place in the United States, a major one, we're going to know it's going to be a bunch of bull. And therefore, we know it's simply just a narrative to push whatever next war they want, in this case, World War III. I'm curious what that black swan event is going to be, and we've been talking about this. In fact, a lot of the bigger YouTube channels, especially news ones, talk about this too, that a black swan event is coming, and it very well may be. But it's the ramifications after the black swan event. If we don't go along with the flow, and suddenly we're going to become enemies of the state.